Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Cassie Hyder, representing my role as a board member on Palliser Economic Partnership, as well as my role as City Councillor. Today I'm overly joyed, but I'm supposed to say, today I'm pleased to welcome representatives of all over Alberta to celebrate a major advancement in establishment of Canada's second hydrogen hub, right here in Southeast Alberta. In August 2021, the City of Medicine Hat led the establishment of the Southeastern Alberta Hydrogen Task Force, an independent working group comprised of government and industry partners. The task force was created to produce a framework to implement a hydrogen economy in Southeast Alberta. The task force foundational study is the first step to identifying broader economic opportunities associated with growing large-scale clean hydrogen production and use. Today, I am pleased to announce that foundational study is complete and as expected, Southeast Alberta is well positioned to capitalize on opportunities in carbon capture and hydrogen production. I would like to welcome the report author and hub facilitator, Randy Latoon, to the podium to share some key findings in his research in Southeast Alberta.
Thank you, Councillor Hyder. As the councillor said, my name is Randy Latoon. I'm an independent consultant that was brought on by the Transition Accelerator to work with the Southeastern Alberta Task Force to do the evaluation study or the foundation study. And I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity because of the terrific people that I've been working with, but also with the region and the area and the potential that this area has on a go-forward basis. To give you an idea of my background, I'm a 30-plus year professional engineer. Most of my career has been spent in the oil and gas industries, energy sector, if you will. And I've been a big proponent in advancing technology and the environmentally and the sustainably development of those energy resources. So the opportunity to work with the region to investigate the hydrogen potential was something that I was very passionate about and I believed in. It's been a long, arduous road. The announcement came last summer that this foundation report was going to be put together. I came on in the fall of last year and spent a great deal of time contacting various peoples throughout the region. And there's dozens of companies that were engaged and were very active participants in providing their proprietary energy and infrastructure information that was crucial for the evaluation of the hydrogen potential for the region. Over 300 people have talked to me and have been engaged and have been very positive about what the potential and how they can become involved and how this can benefit the region and the province as a whole, but their part in it. So I'd like to acknowledge them for their assistance in being able to put this report together. The compilation of the data has been very insightful in terms of not being able to judge a book by its cover. A lot of people will look at the Southeast Alberta region and the makeup of it, viewing it maybe as a rural area, as a low population area, and when they think of Hydrogen Hub, they think of the Alberta Industrial Heartland. Make no bones about it, Southeast Alberta is not the Alberta Industrial Heartland. But I can guarantee you there will be no other hub that will be like Southeast Alberta either. The abilities that it has to bring raw resources to the table, and hydrogen itself does not naturally or normally exist by itself because of its own properties, but yet it's attached to probably 75% of the material in our universe. Hydrocarbon is hydrogen and carbon. Water is hydrogen and oxygen. So what we're doing really is, rather than using primary materials like hydrocarbons as a fuel, we are extracting the fuel portion of it, hydrogen, and utilizing that in a manner that's environmentally friendly without the carbon implications. So when you think about Southeast Alberta, you think about the historical natural gas resources of the region, you think of the renewable power, you think of a lot of the things that are complementary to generating hydrogen and being able to introduce it as a fuel source on a go-forward transition basis. You know, as a country, we've committed, along with 200 other odd entities, to reduce carbon, if not eliminate carbon, by 2050. It's going to be a very daunting task, and to do that, we're going to need regions like Southeast Alberta to contribute their abilities to generate that hydrogen and be in a position to supply that hydrogen to areas throughout the country. Because at the end of the day, for a transition to be successful, we need widespread acceptance of the hydrogen and making its use for everybody. So not just the industrial party in the Alberta heartland, not just the homeowner in Calgary, that's where I'm from, by the way, but for everyone. It's to transition it through the rural areas, it's to transition it to the smaller centers, it's to capitalize on the major corridors to be able to facilitate that expansion and that transition. So when we look at the report, there are a few strengths that have been identified, and I've already mentioned some of them, in the sense that, you know, with the position of Southeast Alberta, the availability of natural gas, the availability of renewable power, it sets itself up to be one of the lowest cost hydrogen producers in the province, in the country, and possibly in North America. You know, we have the historical Hydrogen HUB, which is the center of trading for gas in Alberta, which is right in our backyard. We have a renewable power industry that's expanding and has the potential to even increase more. However, we'll start facing some limitations on the transmission side, which hydrogen itself can be a solution to some of those issues. There are other processes that can be utilized as well. In Medicine Hat itself, there are already 3 hydrogen plants that exist. Now, none of those 3 are making merchant hydrogen. They're using that hydrogen as syngas to make their other products like ammonia or methanol, or it's a byproduct in the extraction of carbon black, like the CAN-CARB process. Both the CAN-CARB process and those processes used by the other 2 parties are different processes. And they have different amounts of energy that's required to do it and different byproducts as well. So they're complementary in the net zero initiative. Couple that with the potentials on the green hydrogen side, which is from renewable power, and you have the ability to generate hydrogen in numerous ways, all of them working together to drive those costs of that hydrogen down to the ultimate benefit of the user and consumer of that hydrogen. The carbon capture projects that are required in the area, the city of Medicine Hat has initiated a process, but there's other emitters that are very keen on seeing some project move forward. That is going to be critical for the go-forward benefit of reducing emissions. The Trans-Canada Highway and the CP Rail Mainline and the general proximity of Medicine Hat in relation to other parts of that corridor, east and west, its ability to extend itself north, its ability to extend itself south, is something that goes to the historical nature of Medicine Hat being a very much a conduit for the transportation and the transport of materials to different parts of the country and to the world. And there's no reason why that can't be a benefit, especially in the short term, using that infrastructure to get that generation of hydrogen established in Medicine Hat or Brooks or Hanna or Oyen or Bow Island or wherever that is within the Southeast Alberta region, and get that on the road or on the rail to the end market where it's needed, whether that's Calgary, Swift Current, Great Falls, Montana, Lloydminster, even further afield, whether it's all the way to Vancouver or all the way to Winnipeg. Those are all existing conduits and corridors that are existing and are being utilized right now. Ammonia and methanol are hydrogen carriers. So what that means is that they're products that hydrogen can be extracted from, but they're more stable, easier to transport products. So therefore, one way of getting hydrogen to different places is using the hydrogen carriers to get it there. Those are already being transported today, and there's no reason why that can't continue into the future. So the report itself will indicate that the estimated hydrogen potential for the region was 1,250 tons per day. Now, if you're like me, it's a number, but what does that really mean? It's significant in the fact that from a top-down analysis, it's 10% of what's been estimated from the province. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of the demand that the region has itself. That number also corresponds to the approximate amount of hydrogen that the 3 plants in Medicine Hat currently produce today. So to get that merchant hydrogen for this, it essentially would mean tripling of those hydrogen processes on a go-forward basis. And that's just based on today's data. It's not based on what's going to happen with growth or with other initiatives. The other part of it is that that's only for local demand. If you incorporate other demands outside of the region, whether it's domestically or internationally, that number could go up by almost an order of magnitude. So the potential to establish Medicine Hat and Brooks and all the areas within Southeast Alberta as a go-to supplier of choice exists, but you need a committee of the committed. You need the producers, you need the distributors, you need the consumers to all accept that there's going to be some growing pains, there's going to be some stumbles along the way, but they all have to work together to bring this hydrogen economy forward to the point where it becomes economically sustaining. Because at the end of the day, it has to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. The renewable power that I talked about earlier in the region is something that's very important too. Right now the region generates about 35% of its electricity by renewable energy projects. Of the projects that are underway this year and going to be put on stream in the next year or two, that number and natural gas will flip, where 62% of the power will be from renewables and 35% or approximately that will be from natural gas. With that comes some challenges. Renewable power doesn't generate energy when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, although in Medicine Hat that's probably all the time. But at the end of the day, you still need other means of balancing out that generation when you need it. And to do that, hydrogen can be that stepping stone. Because you can have excess energy from the renewables put into generating hydrogen. And then you can turn around and take that hydrogen and regenerate power when you need it. Or take that hydrogen and transport it to a region that needs that extra built up electricity. So it also helps with the whole transmission system as well, because with renewable power, the overall amount of capacity that occurs in the transmission system drops just because of the nature of it. So you could use hydrogen to maximize the economic utilization of that distribution and transmission system, as well as stabilize how that power comes up and goes down, because you need that peaking ability to be able to pick up generation when the sun stops shining, or to come offline when the sun does shine. So some of the recommendations or calls of action that were included in the report, obviously the first is the fact that I believe that there is enough support to proceed in establishing a hydrogen hub for the Southeast Alberta region. So over the course of the summer, the various members of the task force, which includes the Palliser Economic Partnership, the City of Medicine Hat, the City of Brooks, and the County of Newell, the Alberta Apex Alberta, which is a accumulation of Alberta Innovates and Medicine Hat College, and I apologize, the fourth one, as well as the industrial partners as well, which is CF Industries, Methanex, We have Rock Point Resources, Campus, and Comtech, which is For Refuel, or formerly a For Refuel company. So all those companies have come together to get this report generated, and I believe that the task force will be taking the summer to communicate how best to move forward with establishing of the hub, do some public education, and also education of them for themselves in terms of what the next steps are, and start building the momentum to start initiating and generating ideas for hydrogen pilots and projects going forward. The work for the CCUS projects, that's encouraged to proceed as timely as possible. There's a desire to engage with the energy regulators and renewable power proponents to discuss the introduction of hydrogen as a long-term strategy for system stability and optimization. The other part of it is to build local demand. We need to start having hydrogen available so hydrogen will be utilized. And if you look at some of the initial false steps that have come, 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, there was a commitment by the Canadian government and the BC government to move forward with hydrogen as a fuel source. But those commitments didn't get carried out by others. You know, the hydrogen corridor and the hydrogen generation just didn't follow. So 5 years after that pilot, the city of Vancouver was left trying to figure out how to make hydrogen economic. Now, they're still one of the leaders in having hydrogen fuel stations. I think there's 4 stations in Vancouver, and there's more momentum gaining in BC as well. But that just highlights the fact that once we get the transition started, we need to make it accessible for people to want to go and buy a Toyota Mirai hydrogen car, or to have the various trucking companies through AMTA to want to build out a hydrogen fleet, or whether that's the municipalities starting to build hydrogen fleets so that we can build hydrogen stations, so that we can build hydrogen generation to fuel those stations, so that we can get to a point where we're building pipelines to actually transport, whether it's a hydrogen carrier, whether it's hydrogen. You know, those things all still have lots of technical challenges. It's not something that just can happen tomorrow, but we need to start. And the transportation corridor is the first place where the hydrogen economics and the diesel economics start to overlap and start to make sense. And that would be the first start to go there. The other part is to have an effort to start sourcing out other export areas to be able to build that demand and build that opportunity to make that supply. Whether that's working maybe with the city of Calgary, who may not have the capability to generate the hydrogen, whether that's working with other smaller municipalities, whether it's Swift Current or Lethbridge or other areas. Or it could be to look at starting to source opportunities in the US. You know, Montana is going to require hydrogen, and it's right next door to us. It'd be a natural ability for us to supply hydrogen there. We already have petroleum infrastructure that goes to the US Midwest and to California, so it's only natural that those would be 2 places that Canada and Alberta and Medicine Hat and Southeast Alberta can concentrate on for potential supply. So we need to start building that. But to get there, we need the local demand established first. You know, it goes, one of the statements I make in the report is that supply and demand must grow in equivalent broad steps to support the build out of the necessary infrastructure to allow for the generation, transport, distribution, and consumption of hydrogen at scale to realize commercial viability and economic sustainability. So you can't just say, well, let someone build a hydrogen generation facility and then we'll decide whether we want a hydrogen car. It won't work. Same thing is we could bring a Toyota Mirai to Medicine Hat tomorrow, but you'd only go as far as that 1 tank of hydrogen would get you because there is no supply here. So you need everything to work together and to move up together and to have that mutual commitment from all parties to move there. So I've probably taken more of my time. I apologize for that, but obviously I'm very passionate about this. As I said, I'm an oil and gas guy by nature, but I believe that there's a role for oil and gas in addition to the other renewable aspects in this low carbon energy transition, and it all has to work together. With that, I'll turn it over to Brad Means.
Hello everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm Brad Mains. I'm the Managing Director for Energy and Infrastructure for the city, and hope to be very much part of this story going forward. I'm fortunate. I've had the opportunity to work with Randy. We were talking before 6-7 times over the course of our careers on different things in different companies, and when I heard that Randy was going to be involved in the writing of this report, the presenting of the report, and assisting the group, I thought we could not be in better hands. Through his technical knowledge, his business acumen, his vision of the future, I think that's all come together in the report, and I really encourage everyone to go online, take a look at the report, read about it, and then start to work within your various areas of influence to make this happen. As Randy said, it needs everybody to work on this. It can't just be a government decree saying, go out, make hydrogen happen. We all have to work towards this cleaner future that this will bring. I often get asked, why not electricity? Why are you guys so focused on hydrogen? But I think for many of us who have started to set out from the city of Medicine Hat on a cold January evening and it's at minus 30 and we're looking at a 3 or 4 hour drive that potentially could get interrupted, setting out an electric vehicle with our families, there's always going to be that aspect of range anxiety approaching or associated with that particular trip. You don't have to have that range anxiety with hydrogen. It's a fuel, you know how much is left, you'll know how far you go, and there's going to be those fueling stations. So we don't believe, and I think the report supports this, hydrogen is not an alternative. Hydrogen is not in conflict with electricity. It's just part of a diversified energy source future that we can all work towards. If I could, I want to take you to what Medicine Hat 2030 might look like. And I was asked, or somebody said earlier on this week when we were talking about our Project Clear Horizon and our Carbon Hub, they said, well, that hydrogen, it's just science fiction. It's not going to happen. I expect in 2030, many of us will be driving hydrogen-powered cars. You can buy them today. There's 3 manufacturers of hydrogen cars. Now, they may not have chips, but you can at least get the hydrogen car itself. You can buy a hydrogen tractor trailer. You can build your trucking business around hydrogen. We expect, and we've talked to CP about the possibility of there being hydrogen-powered locomotives at the switching station here in Medicine Hat. Our city fleet will have, and I expect we'll still have some aspect of our compressed natural gas fleet, which we were very proud of, very early on, very innovative. I expect we'll have hydrogen-powered vehicles available for us. I think when I was reading the report, both through its draft form and the final form, what really struck out to me, though, too, was the agricultural demand. We think of this primarily as a transportation, urban transportation, as a trucking industry type of fuel. But you can imagine what it would be like to set out to combine or to seed your fields in an electrical world. Not many of the colonies, not many of the farms, particularly the smaller farms, are going to be able to afford the electrical infrastructure that will be needed. Not only that, some of these tractors, I understand, have 16, 18-wheel drives, and they're going to burn a lot of electricity quickly. So what was interesting about the report was the agricultural benefits that will come from a hydrogen future. Hydrogen combines, you can buy them today. Hydrogen tractors. So the future of hydrogen here for Southeast Alberta and for the region, I believe, is immense, and the report does support that. Randy went into quite a bit of detail about what's in the report and about hydrogen, but I encourage everyone, we're going to have a webinar, Randy and I, tomorrow. We'll get into a bit more of the technical details, et cetera, what this hydrogen future is going to look like. But from the City of Medicine Hat's perspective, we will be involved, we'll be supporting this, we'll be promoting it, we'll be talking about budget asks for hydrogen initiatives, because we truly believe that the future, we can have the economic vitality, we can have a cleaner environment that will all come from this hydrogen initiative. And City of Medicine Hat has a very long history in energy. That history and the future remains to be written. And I expect that hydrogen is going to be a big part of that. So on behalf of the City of Medicine Hat from our Energy and Infrastructure Group, I want to thank all the project participants that helped in the creation of the report. Thanks to Randy for that as well, and thanks to everyone here for your attendance today, and we look forward to the future. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to support the rollout of your Hydrogen Hub Foundational Study. This is a very exciting time. I'm Dave Vandenassum. I'm representing Alberta Innovates and the Alberta Hydrogen Centre of Excellence, which is operated by Alberta Innovates. I'd also like to acknowledge Apex Alberta, Tracy Stroud here in the crowd, as your representative in the Regional Innovation Network. Our John Stroh is the Alberta Innovates representative. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but Michael Kerr is in the audience in his place. And we also, within the Regional Innovation Network, is the Community Futures Entrepreneur, which of course Tracy is representing, and Medicine Hat College, which Mark Keller is representing. I don't know if Mark's here. There it is. There. Excellent. So a little bit of background on Alberta Innovates quickly. Alberta Innovates is focused on bringing next generation solutions forward to market readiness. And we have different divisions. Entrepreneur Investments, which Michael Kerr can tell you lots about, is focused on building the entrepreneur and building the business. Clean Resources, which is where I'm based out of, is focused on advancing technologies towards commercial readiness. And that's in advanced hydrocarbons, in renewable and alternative energy, in bioenergy, hydrogen, of course, CCUS, smart agriculture, and a number of other areas. Alberta Innovates also has a health division and two subsidiaries, Innotech Alberta and CFR Technologies, that both do technology testing and process engineering work. The Hydrogen Centre of Excellence is funded by the Government of Alberta with $50 million over 4 years to be spent on advancing technology development and building the hydrogen economy. We'll be looking to leverage those $50 million with federal and other industry contributions as well. The objectives of the center are to advance new hydrogen technologies, or next generation hydrogen technologies, from bench scale proof of concept through to field pilot stage. And that covers production, transmission, distribution, use across the entire value chain. We also want to focus in on improving public awareness and education about hydrogen, enable carbon capture, utilization, and storage, as well as improve Alberta's economy and create jobs, build partnerships and alliances, and such as the ones we've been hearing about today. This is, I'm just so excited about this. And enhancing pilot testing facilities through our subsidiaries, as I mentioned, and supporting the establishment of codes and standards to help enable the economy, the hydrogen, to be integrated into the energy system. How are we going to do that? How can you access some of this funding and some of the programs within the center? We have 2 funding calls that are coming up. One possibly next week. That's what we're aiming for. It'll be $20 million, and it'll be focused on projects that are asking between $200,000 and $2 million, which would be about up to 50% of the total eligible project costs, for advancing technologies from the proof of concept through to field pilot stage of development, and would typically take about 2 years, up to 2 years duration. We will be doing a second call in approximately 2024, which will have $15 million from the center, as well as matching with about up to $20 million from some of our other funding partners that can work with later stage technologies. So up to $20 million from them. And that will allow us to cover proof of concept stage of development all the way through to first commercial deployment of new technologies. And so we also have a bucket of dollars available for opportunity analyses and studies similar to the ones we're talking about today, as well as supporting the codes and standards development. We'll also be putting $10 million into the capital improvements for the Innotech and CFR facilities, so they can be better able to test your hydrogen technologies or those of your colleagues. And if you wanted to talk about connections and how to build partnerships and where else to connect with in other parts of the province and other resources that are available, I'm absolutely happy to have that conversation with you. And so if you wanted to talk about hydrogen or CCUS, carbon capture and storage activities, I would be the Alberta Innovates representative for those areas. For the entrepreneur investments, John Stroh and Michael Kerr would be your points of contact. And for the regional innovation work, John Stroh and Tracy Stroud would be your contacts. If any of those other areas I mentioned that Alberta Innovates deals with are of interest, they will have a web page on the Alberta Innovates site with a name and a contact number and an email for you to connect directly in with them. So again, congratulations on the release of this foundational report, and I am super excited to support this region with hydrogen and CCUS technology development. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon from the Brooks Newell region. We're very excited about this project and our partnerships with the other communities in the private sector that helped develop this report. And you look at partnerships, just look at the list below here of the people involved in this there too. This area, Medicine Hat and Brooks, we've had a long history of the production of energy, as you stated there before, and that's why it's called the Gas City. And if you know the history of Medicine Hat, you know why Hell's Basement is here too, eh? And in the Brooks area, we're a community that has thrived off the energy sector. But now we move forward with the Hydrogen Hub, which will help our province move to net zero. With an economic potential of about $7 billion, which I think you pointed out there, this is a great opportunity for Southeast Alberta. And we have two MLAs here, MLA Michaela Fry and MLA Drew Barnes. And I've often talked about our development in Southeast Alberta with our MLA there too. So I see this as great potential for our region here too. Now this is positive for the energy sector, transportation, and as somebody else pointed out, agriculture, the environment, and most importantly, I think for the prosperity of the Southeast region here too. This is a project that all levels of government can get behind, which will benefit us locally, provincially, and federally. So I think we can all get behind this project. So we are, in our region here, we're very excited about this project there, and I want to thank you for your time and effort that you guys put into that, and our partnerships, all the partnerships involved in this. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Well, that's a wrap for us today. I'd like to thank all our speakers and congratulations. What a critical milestone for Southeastern Alberta. Special thanks to the funding partners that have made research and report possible are APEX, Brooks Newell Region, Campus Energy, Methanex, CF Industries, Palliser Economic Partnership, Prairie Can, and Rockport, and what was the other? And what was the other one you wanted me to mention?
Oh, and just the coordination by the Transition Accelerator.
Right, and the coordination by the Transition Accelerator. To learn more about the foundational report and Southeast Alberta's potential to become a major merchant hydrogen generation region and next steps to further progress efforts to build it out, a hydrogen hub, we invite you to join report author Randy Lutoon and City's Managing Director Brad Maines for the webinar tomorrow at 1:30. You can register for the webinar on the City of Medicine Hat's website. One more special thank you to Apex Alberta for providing the food and beverages. And that's it. Thank you, everyone.